First of all, there was a clear collaboration between the Kenyan government and Nigerian government. I'm happy now that they are denying the fact that Nnamdi Kanu was arrested in their place and also handed over to Nigerian government. But I can assure you that by the time we finish with them at the international court, they will never remain the same. First of all, there was a clear collaboration between the Kenyan government and Nigerian government. I'm happy now that they are denying the fact that Nnamdi Kanu was arrested in their place and also handed over to Nigerian government. But I can assure you that by the time we finish with them at the international court, they will never remain the same. What's important at this stage, and I've already made known to the world, is that he was arrested at the airport on the 19th day of June 2021. And he was taken to an unknown residence. That is a fact. He wasn't taken to a custody, and they recognized the official custody of the police over there. He was taken to an unknown residence where he was subjected to inhuman treatment. Nnamdi Kanu was tortured, maltreated, and beaten, mercilessly beaten. So these are facts within our knowledge confirmed by him to us. So after spending 8 days in their custody, illegal custody, they now beckoned on the Nigerian counterpart to come for him. And by the time they came, Nnamdi Kanu was apparently unconscious at the point they came to pick him. He was unconscious. He was near lifeless at the time they were back taking him to Nigeria. So, and consequently they brought him here. So now, to tell you the level of their conspiracy and the desperation to get him jailed at all costs by enemies. They brought him here on a Sunday, and the federal government is fully aware that I'm the lead counsel to Nnamdi Kanu. And there's a charge against him before the court, which has been subsisting has been going on. Because after invasion of his premises on the 14th of September 2017 by the Nigerian military and soldiers, who killed over 28 persons in his house, and by act of providence, he was narrowly escaped. We filed an application before the court for an inquest into what transpired in his house on the 17th of September 2017. For court to inquire as to what happened in his house, what led to his disappearance. And we are still in this process, because that is fundamental. This is a person that has expressed to the world that he is ready to come for his trial on October 14th, 2017. He wasn't planning to leave the country. He wasn't planning to run away from the trial. He was ready to come for the trial on October 14th. The matter was stated for commencement of trial. Then on September 17th, his house was invaded. So to tell you that the government was not ready at the time to prosecute him, because they have no evidence to establish even the charge preferred against him to even date. So they went after his life. Now it's compelling on the part of the court to inquire what happened to this person I granted bail, what led to his disappearance. Then surprisingly, on the 28th of March 2019, when the matter came up for sureties to show cause why they will not be committed for contempt, why they were unable to produce Nnamdi Kanu, that was the proceedings of that day. The court gave an order revoking his bail. Then we said no, because the court should be bound by its records. We said no, and we'll find applications to get that vacated. Since 2019 to date, the matter had severally come up before the same court. And the court was not inclined to hear this application to vacate the order. And the worst thing is that the federal government has not filed any response to this application before the court. They have not filed a response in counter to application to get that vacated. They were not interested. What they are interested is to how to get in Nnamdi Kanu at all means available to them. So now he was brought into this country on Sunday after being detained, maltreated, subjected to all forms of inhuman treatment, and inflicted with severe injuries on account of handcuff that lasted on his hands for over 4 hours till before he was brought to court. And you can see him on handcuff in court on that day. Those injuries are still there, and a number of medical issues he's having today on account of what was the kind of treatment that was meted out to him. So they took him to court on a Tuesday. Labaran Chaibu Labaran, who is the counsel that was in court on that day representing federal government, is fully aware that the Sifai Ejiofor is the lead counsel in this matter. And I've been in court with him in all cases affecting Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB. He never extended the courtesy of informing me that that my client was arrested, was abducted, because in this case wasn't arrested. So that when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. He was abducted and kidnapped from Kenya and brought into this country. So now he didn't feel it confident. Didn't see it confident or didn't appropriate to inform me that my client was arrested and has been brought to court on Tuesday. So that shows there's a collaboration between the government in question, as we stand today, and the people we are appearing before them. Because if after all there was any element of iota of transparency in what they're doing, is compelling on the part of the AG, not the lawyer representing the Federation, to inform me that they are coming to court on Tuesday, so I can come to court and see my client. I don't know what happened, and this is quite frankly what happened. So on Tuesday, I took him to court, and the court asked them, "Where is Barrister Ejiofor? Is he not in court? Was he not informed?" They said no. They arrested him and brought him to Abuja on Sunday, and he's called today. So now there's an underlying fact that my client will not get fair trial in that court. That's settled. The issue of fair trial has been taken away by this collaboration. But we keep on watching. We are going to see them in court. So that is what happened as of today. I've seen him, and he has given me every information and detail about what transpired in Kenya, how he was arrested, how he was taken to a non-destination, and how he was maltreated, how they nearly killed him over there. And it's obviously from what he told me that it was at the behest of the federal government that they were doing those things. So until when they beckon on them to come, these are against an obvious infraction to all international laws and treaties. So, but at that level, we're addressing it. We're going to address an international court at that level. So let me concern myself what's happening in the country. So it's obvious from every indication that my client will not get a fair trial in this court. Obvious. Until when the contrary is established. And now, Nnamdi Kanu was manded in prison custody. Let me underline this fact. Long before he was granted bail, he spent over 2 years in custody before he was granted bail. The court itself is aware that he was in prison custody before he was granted bail. And at the point he was in prison custody, Nnamdi Kanu at any point, made any effort to leave the prison without the judicial process. Now, they remanded him in DSS custody, where they made it near impossible for his relatives when we chose to visit him, except on appointment by his lawyers. So that itself has also graduated to what I call mental torture. He's being subjected to mental torture as I speak to you now. Because when somebody is in incarceration as a political prisoner, which he is, he has no access to his wife, he has no access to his brothers, he has no access to relatives to discuss with them and interact with them. Even lawyers who are coming to see him are coming on a specific approval by the DGSSS. So it shows that he is undergoing mental torture. And it is worse still when Nnamdi Kanu is under a debilitating health situation. He has a medical condition that needs to be addressed as quick as possible. Because it's only a living that can face trial. When Nnamdi Kanu was arrested, abducted in Kenya by the Kenya police force at airport, he was primarily accused by the people that arrested him of committing treason offense on their country. And at the point in time, they were apparently or presupposedly acting under the impression that they do not know the person they're dealing with. So now the game changed when they took him to a place other than the police station or any of the approved official detention facility of the Kenya government. They took him there and started maltreating him. So they were discussing with him, interrogating him on the basis that he has committed offense against the Kenyan government. So I am telling you what I have with me, the impeccable facts I have with me. And I have every evidence to establish that in the course of time. Because When we get to that international court, the Kenya government will come to defend themselves. We'll have facts, information, documents to show what happened to him and where it happened. So, and when they became convinced after 8 days of maltreating him, torturing him, subjecting him to all forms of inhuman treatment, that Nnamdi Kanu never committed any offense unto law in Kenya, a British citizen for that matter, then they ran back on, because it's a collaborative something. It's like there was a conspiracy in the first place. So because they know probably he has meetings, he will be attending a meeting in Kenya. So they have that intel. So they ran back on the Nigerian government to come and pick him without due process of law being adhered to. So if he has committed any offense unto law over there, remember he's a British citizen, they were subjected into extradition proceedings. So this took place in Kenya, and we have the facts, we have document to show to the international community and in the fullness of time. As I speak to you, I'm written to foreign government. His attorney overseas are taking up the matter over there. So they're being smart by half for denying the fact that Nnamdi Kanu was never arrested in Kenya. Let them go to court. We're already in court with them. They're taking them to court anymore for now on what transpired in Kenya. That they was abducted, taken to non-residence, maltreated, beaten mercilessly, tortured. So even as a matter of fact, when the Nigerian counterpart came, they became scared of the fact that Nnamdi Kanu might have died in their hide. They didn't conduct proper examination, medical examination. That was when they took him to a hospital in Nairobi and confirmed what his medical situation. So as an adult woman, I kept on to emphasize that his medical condition is deteriorating every day. And I'm telling the world that it is better for him to be given medical attention than to die before the date of the hearing. And if anything happens to him today, he's today before the Nigerian court. He's still before the Nigerian court, in Nigerian custody. The Nigerian government will be held responsible. So they should allow his medical expert to visit him and give him attention.